The purpose of this presentation is to educate the public about the national popular vote and actions people can take to help pass the necessary legislation in Michigan. The League of Women Voters of Michigan has joined the Michigan National Popular Vote Coalition. Other members include the ACLU, Common Cause, Mothering Justice, and Voters Not Politicians. As part of the coalition, the League is engaged in a legislative campaign to pass the National Popular Vote Compact. The bill has been introduced in the Michigan legislature, and we plan to get it passed before the legislature's summer recess. Educational presentations at town halls and webinars across the state play an important role in educating the public about the national popular vote and what we can do to help get the bill passed in the legislature. How does America elect our president? The Electoral College. You can see on the map the Electoral College votes for each state. Michigan has 15, 2 senators, and 13 congressional districts. On Election Day, you and I cast our ballots for the candidates of our choice, but the real vote is when electors meet in December and cast their ballots. States are allocated 1 electoral vote per every representative in Congress. Each state starts with 2 and has 1 for every House member. 270 electoral votes are needed to become the president. Remember this number, 270. 270 is a majority of the total number of the Electoral College votes, which is 538. So, who are these electors who are deciding who the president is? The U.S. Constitution gives explicit power to the states to decide how their electors are chosen. Quote, "Each state shall appoint in such manner as the legislature thereof may direct a number of electors." Close quotes. State legislatures decide how to award their state's electoral votes, a power that the Supreme Court has termed plenary, an absolute power of the states. 48 states choose electors based on whoever received the most votes within their state on Election Day. These are winner-take-all laws. A winner-take-all method means the candidate who receives the majority of votes in the state's popular vote takes all of that state's electoral votes. In 2020, in California, Democratic candidate Joe Biden received the most votes. He won all 55 of California's electoral votes. In Texas, Republican candidate Donald Trump received the most votes. He won all 38 of Texas's electoral votes. So in 2020, if you were one of the 6 million Californians who cast a ballot for Donald Trump, or one of the 5.2 million Texans who cast a ballot for Joe Biden, your vote was effectively thrown out at the state line. So state law is the reason we end up with divergent elections, when the popular vote winner is the Electoral College loser, which leads us to discussing the problems of the current system. The problem we are the most familiar with: the person with less votes can and frequently does end up in the White House. 5 times in our nation's history, the candidate who received fewer votes nationwide became the president. That means more than 10% of our presidents have been elected without even a plurality of voters supporting them. Currently, we are in an era of close elections. Just in the last 20 years, we've had 2 wrong winner elections, 2000 and 2016, and 2 near misses. You might be surprised to hear that one of the near misses almost put a Democrat in office over a Republican. In 2004, if 60,000 more voters in Ohio had cast their ballots for John Kerry instead of George Bush, Kerry would have won Ohio, won the Electoral College, and become president, despite losing the popular vote by a larger margin than Donald Trump did in 2016. The 2020 election was our second near-miss election in the past 2 decades. If 21,460 voters had changed their minds and not voted for Biden, 5,229 in Arizona, 5,890 in Georgia, and 10,342 in Wisconsin, Trump would have gone on to win a second term despite losing the popular vote by over 7 million. Another huge problem with the way we elect the president is that every vote is not equal. Most voters are totally ignored in the general election and have their vote taken for granted. As a result of winner-take-all laws, most states are decidedly red, Republican, or decidedly blue, Democratic. Candidates for the general election only campaign for a small number of undecided voters who live in closely divided states, that is, swing states or battleground states. The entire general election happens in 12 states or less, and those are the states that truly get to decide who the next president is. This has implications at the federal level as well as between states. 5 of our 9 Supreme Court justices were appointed by popular vote loser presidents. Remember, a winner-take-all method, meaning the candidate who receives the majority of votes in the state's popular vote takes all of that state's electoral votes. Whoever gets the most votes should become the president. This is how we elect almost every other office in the country, and it is time we modernize our presidential elections and make every vote equal. Every vote being equal would mean candidates would have to care about the entire population's interests, not just those in swing states. We would break the system where candidates advocate for positions that poll well with swing voters and only listen to the concerns of voters in a small number of states. We can do this through the National Popular Vote Interstate Compact. The National Popular Vote Bill guarantees the presidency to the candidate who receives the most popular votes in all 50 states and the District of Columbia. If you win the popular vote, you win the Electoral College. This is a bill passed by states to change how they vote in the Electoral College. States replace their current law with a new state law that awards their electors to the candidate who wins the popular vote in all 50 states and the District of Columbia. However, the bill is in effect when states with 270 electoral votes have been committed to the compact, thus guaranteeing the Electoral College to the winner of the national popular vote. That's right, we can have a national popular vote for president without a U.S. constitutional amendment, and it is because of these 17 words. Sound far-fetched? It isn't. This bill has been passed in 16 states with 195 electoral votes. In previous years, it has passed in at least one chamber in 9 additional states with 88 electoral votes. National popular vote bills are currently pending in a dozen state legislatures. This bill is not a reaction to the 2016 election and was in existence a full decade before Donald Trump was elected. It was first passed in 2007. This isn't a left or right issue. It's an American issue that all voters can get behind. In 2018, 15 Republican senators in Michigan joined with Democrats to sponsor the National Popular Vote bill. The small states, the 13 states with only 3 or 4 electoral votes, are the most disadvantaged and ignored group of states under the current state-by-state winner-take-all method of awarding electoral votes. The reason is that political power in presidential elections comes from being a closely divided battleground state, and almost all of the small states are non-competitive states in presidential elections. As this graphic shows, of the states with 3 or 4 electoral votes, 7 are decidedly Republican and 7 are decidedly Democratic. The small states are not ignored because of their low population, but because they are not closely divided battleground states. The small states of Hawaii, Delaware, Rhode Island, Vermont, and the District of Columbia have already signed on to the national popular vote because they know it makes their voters more relevant. People sometimes fear that candidates will just visit the highest population states. Every vote in every state would matter in every presidential election under national popular vote. Under a national popular vote, a voter in a small state would become as important as any other voter in the United States. Will New York City and Los Angeles decide who the president is? No. It is a common misconception that people fear that big cities will decide an election under a national popular vote. This stems from people thinking cities are bigger than they actually are. In fact, 19.6% of the United States lives in the 100 largest cities, while 20% of the country lives in rural America. To win a national popular vote, you can't just campaign to the 20% of people in rural America any more than you can just talk to people in big cities. You have to speak to both groups as well as the 60% of Americans who live in the suburbs and are evenly divided between Democrats and Republicans. Currently, we have 2 kinds of voters in presidential elections: those in flyover states and are irrelevant, and those in battleground states who are hyper-relevant. National popular vote corrects this. We don't have to guess about this because we know when every vote matters. For example, within battleground states, candidates go all over the state because every vote matters and has the chance to clinch that state's electoral votes. After coming up with the concept of electors choosing the president, the founders debated how those electors should be chosen. Our current system is nothing like it was at the founding of our country. In the first presidential election, only 5 states allowed citizens to vote for the president in any form. Founders ultimately decided to leave it up to the states to decide. The state legislature was the closest body to the people. They could decide what was best for the voters in their state. We are looking to state legislatures to change their state laws exactly as the framers intended. It is, in fact, state legislators' constitutional duty to consider this matter. The National Popular Vote Bill would guarantee the presidency to the candidate with the most votes. Every voter in every state would be politically relevant in the presidential election for the first time. The League of Women Voters of Michigan voted to support this legislation in Michigan using the national position. The League of Women Voters of Michigan also joined the Michigan National Popular Vote Coalition. As part of the coalition, the League is engaged in a legislative campaign to pass the National Popular Vote Compact. The League is providing educational presentations at town halls and webinars across the state. These presentations play an important role in educating the public about the national popular vote and what we can do to help get the bill passed in the legislature. The bill has been introduced. It has to go through the committee process and pass in the Michigan House of Representatives and the Michigan Senate and be signed by the governor. In the 2019-2020 session, no bill was introduced. In the 2021-22 session, Democratic Representative Kolazar introduced House Bill 5343, and it was referred to the Committee on Government Operations, where it died. These national organizations are supporting the campaign. The League of Women Voters of the United States supports National Popular Vote Bill, and leagues, including the League of Women Voters of Michigan, are engaged on this campaign all around the country. Here in Michigan, we are part of the Michigan National Popular Vote Coalition. The League is working with the ACLU of Michigan, Common Cause, Mothering Justice, and Voters Not Politicians.